Hey guys, and welcome to the Wise Photographer podcast. You're listening to episode number 20. Today, I'm sitting down to chat with Erica Steeves. Erica is a commercial brand photographer specializing in product styling. She's based in Montreal, Canada, but works with product-based clients from all over the world. Her passion is helping businesses gain clarity on how they want to show up online and making beautiful branded imagery that sells their product and service in an authentic way. I invited Erica on the show today to share a little bit about what commercial photography is and how we as portrait photographers can use our skills and our equipment that we already have to diversify our offerings and stretch our creative muscles just a little. All right, guys, let's dive right on in.
Welcome to the Wise Photographer podcast with your host, Chelsea Wise. Each week, Chelsea is bringing you the best tips and tricks to help you create a joyful, profitable, more purpose-filled photography business. Chelsea is a wife and mom of two who has built a thriving photography business in her tiny hometown in western North Dakota. Without further ado, here's your host, Chelsea Wise.
Hey guys, I'm so excited for this interview. We have Miss Erica on the show today. So Erica, I'd love for you to kind of introduce yourself and kind of tell us a little bit about what your career path has looked like and what you do as a photographer.
Thank you so much for having me on today. I'm really excited to dive in and share my experiences. And from what I understand and what I've heard on your podcast, it's all about kind of nurturing and people that are really just starting out. And I only launched my business 7 months ago. So I am very much in that messy middle stage of figuring out all of the little pieces to put together. I come from previously to me branching out on my own, I was working at a studio for 3 years as a creative director. And I started this just as a prop stylist. And this is kind of the niche that I dominate now, and it's my primary expertise. But while I was there, I learned how to light my work and how to capture it. So it's how I also became now a commercial brand photographer. But I studied and went to school for fashion design, which I find is really interesting because, fashion design, now photographer, it's kind of like I had a huge career pivot about 3 years ago. And it's been really amazing to have this journey, but I find my knowledge and understanding in fashion design and product development makes me a better commercial photographer and sets me apart from my peers.
Oh, awesome. I love that. I had no idea that you did fashion design before this. That's awesome. Can you tell us a little bit about a commercial brand photographer is and what all you do as one?
So essentially, a commercial photographer is somebody that primarily works with brands. And my main purpose for taking photos is they're going to be showing up in advertising and marketing. I've done print, I've done for magazines and things like this. So the whole premise is the objective is to make photographs that are going to sell items. And this is a commercial photographer for me. I primarily shoot in studio. I do shoot on location sometimes, but generally I'm using strobe lights, which gives a really high quality, crisp image with a lot of bright, colorful contrast and things like this. So that's what I kind of label as a commercial photographer. But taking it one step forward is taking my product styling and mixing it with commercial photography. I really tell stories and I help build brand identities with businesses. So something that I work with a lot with my clients is what is your story? How do we get there? And I do this visually with the items that I place in the camera and in the frame. And it's the items that I pull. It's the concepts and the creative direction that I give while I'm on set or preparing for a shoot. So I have niched out a little space for myself by calling myself a commercial brand photographer.
Awesome. I love that. What's been some of your favorite brands that you've worked with recently?
So it's kind of crazy because I didn't go to school for photography, as I just said.
Mm-hmm.
And my friend, he had gone to school for photography and he's had this business for over 10 years. Initially, I just started out doing product styling for him because he needed extra hand because of the volume was picking up. So I would join him on set and we would keep working on different things. And then eventually it got to a point where my work was starting to get noticed. And it was the point that I took the leap of faith of joining the studio full time as the creative director. I booked a large client here in Montreal named Linen Chest. And they're a department store. It's similar to I don't know, like I don't know what the equivalent would be in the
Like
United
maybe like a
States.
Macy's or something like that?
Yeah, but except for it's like a Macy's, except for it's a lot smaller. So
Okay.
they have like a linen section and a
Mm,
home kitchen and decorations. They do custom curtains and things like this. But I think they have over 30 stores
okay.
like in Canada. So they have like a really large footprint, and they're based out of Montreal where I work. So it was kind of like a turning point where I was like, okay, I need to make the decision if I'm going to be doing this full time. I left my job in the fashion industry to come over to do this. Over the years, like my photography, without even realizing it, I woke up one Saturday morning and one of my images was in Times Square.
Wow.
So it just kind of goes to show like you never know where the images, like what projects you're working on, where they're going to end up.
Mm-hmm.
I was working with a client. This client was called High on Love. They have it's like essential oils and different things like this. So that was a really exciting moment in my short career of like just 3 years as a photographer.
That's
And
awesome.
I work a lot on campaigns with L'Oreal. They have a head office here in Montreal. And sometimes I get brought into different projects for this, but under the L'Oreal brand, there's many different companies, like smaller
Mm-hmm.
companies. And one of them that I've done multiple with is Biotherm. And I've done national campaigns where they've been in drugstores from coast to coast or from in department stores from coast to coast. So it just, you never know where things are going to take you. And it's so exciting to me still. And sometimes my favorite projects to work on are people that only just like are getting their feet wet and they're starting their business from scratch. And there's a lot of room for input and creative direction. But
Mm-hmm.
when you're working with those larger companies, you're fitting a mold. Like you are fulfilling a preconceived expectation. And it can be really hard to meet those deadlines or like that expectation because like they typically can't be on set and you have to communicate through email. So it's really, there's a wide spectrum.
Wow, that's awesome. So like when you're starting to work with like a new brand or a new company, are you doing research to kind of help prepare you? What does that process kind of look like for you?
I recently just like sat down and wrote out my entire onboarding process. And I have it actually as a freebie that I'm giving away to
Oh,
anybody
awesome.
that wants to like to kind of understand the process.
Mm-hmm.
But one of the things that leads to the success of my photo shoots is my onboarding process, which I've refined over the last 3 years. And the very first initial contact, I have a script that I kind of go through. And a lot of the questions that I'm asking is pulling out information from the client, like subconsciously, without them maybe realizing it, that is actually fitting into my bigger picture of like understanding what their project is, what the scope of it is, what their expectations are, and like bringing them in on the process as much as possible is like one of the secret sauces to being able to have a successful photo shoot is like if you can understand their vision and if they feel understood,
Mm-hmm.
they are going to be so much happier with the results. And it's something that I strive for every single photo shoot is getting those results for my clients.
Awesome. I love that. We will make sure that we definitely link that onboarding process below in the show notes for you guys because I think that'll be a great resource for anyone who's looking at either getting into brand photography or refining their workflow. What do you think have been some of your favorite parts about this transition from the fashion industry and into the commercial brand photography space?
One of the biggest differences is with photography, you have instant gratification. And with product development and fashion design and things like this, like you are working seasons in advance. And I was in menswear for a while. So we were doing a full year in advance. So, like projects would sit on your desk in the development stage all the way until they were on the production floor for a year.
Wow.
And it would just like there would be so many limitations and hurdles. And like by the time the year came when you're actually producing this item, you're like, get it away from me. Like I am so done with this project and this file, like no more. And there's always like in the fashion industry where all of the textiles are like essentially alive, they move, they contract, you get a sample, but when you get production, it's not the exact same. So you have to accommodate. And there's like, or like something doesn't show up and you have to replace something at the last minute. It's just like the struggle. There's so many struggles.
It sounds really stressful, like a
But it's
prolonged
made me a
stress.
really great problem solver. Like I am a really good creative problem solver and I thrive in that kind of situation. So I've been able to transfer these skills into commercial photography pretty seamlessly in the way that, like, except for it's on a much shorter timeline.
Yeah.
So I'm able to do like plan a shoot it within a week and then be able to deliver it within a week. And, in a 2-week period, I'm able to have a final product. But I also like part of what makes me a really great photographer and the relationships that I build with clients is my understanding of what it takes to produce something and to have that product development stage that, like, against all the odds in the world, like by chance, this product is for sale. Like you can actually buy this item. Like the concept that you had, you were able to get the samples figured out and now it's for sale. So I always like to celebrate that. And I'm right there with my clients, like congratulating them of the success of like actually bringing it into fruition because it can be a struggle.
I love that you really understand what goes into like really creating something before it's like actually live. I think I myself really didn't understand didn't understand before even talking to you, like the process and how long that can take. So I can definitely see how that's definitely an asset, both for your photography, but also for like your clients to really be able to connect with them and understand like the months and years that have gone into producing this new product. That's awesome. Way to go. What do you think have been some of the struggles that you've faced as you've grown your career?
I didn't go to school for photography. I get a lot of imposter syndrome. Like, like when my photo showed up in Times Square, like, I'm like, who, me? Like, I was like, how could this be? Like, I only been a photographer at that point for like not even a year. It was really eye-opening to me. Or when a project, it hits a limit or it hits like a point where there's conflict or there's like a misunderstanding. And, like, I'm like, I get that imposter syndrome of like, like, am I doing what I'm supposed to be doing? Like, can I actually do this? And sometimes I have those limitations with like not having all of the experience with lighting or all of the technical experience with the camera and things like this. But I've worked in a network of people and resources that I can reference if I get stuck on things. And this has given me confidence. But sometimes when you are on set and you are doing a big project and there's a timeline and there's a lot of pressure, it does get the best of me and moments, like any normal person can, for sure. But the thing that I find is really hard is like, if you don't have a team with you, like somebody that, if you're a photographer and if you don't have an assistant, or if you don't have also a product stylist on set, like all of the weight of the project falls on your shoulders. And you don't have the ability to bounce ideas off of other people and things like this. So when I am working on projects that are on a tight budget and I'm not able to build a team to be able to execute the vision, like the stress can get to you, like it can get really heavy. So imposter syndrome is one of the biggest things that I deal with. Is like you never know, like a client can go rogue or like they haven't told you the whole story. And then at the last minute, they're like, oh, we also have to get an approval from my business partner who's not here and hasn't been part of the process. And then we get their feedback and it's like night and day from like what we had started with in the project.
Oh, that'd be frustrating.
Like, reining in projects, like client relationships, and like complete understanding, like these are all things that I have to practice on a daily basis when working with clients.
I can relate to that imposter syndrome so much, especially with like launching this podcast, because like I launched before I ever was even a guest on a show. I just started my own podcast because I felt like we needed to get this information out. But I can definitely relate. There's days where I wake up and like, what authority do I have to share any of this information or any of this knowledge? But
I feel similar to this in the way that I just recently launched a YouTube channel where I'm teaching how to do product styling because this is my specialty.
mhm,
And I want to teach wedding photographers or portrait photographers or family portrait, like family photographers and things like this, how they can get more client-based business so that they can relieve themselves from the weekends and evening warriors to have more of a consistent 9 to 5 basis
mhm,
and like build strong relationships with clients that you can do multiple shoots in a year every year. And it's more sustainable than a wedding where it only happens once. And then
mhm,
if they do have kids or if they do refer you to someone else, there are opportunities to grow. But like with businesses, you have the opportunity to build that relationship.
mhm.
So this is what I'm talking about on my YouTube channel, but it literally took me 4 months to do the lab to make my first video because like I was so scared of showing up. I didn't know the process. I like literally just like jumped before I was ready and I'm still figuring it out, but it's been really exciting.
Yeah, I can so relate to that, especially with podcasts because I'll record everything and like I'm like I have all this like gumption, but like the second I hit publish or it's scheduled to publish, I'm like, oh my gosh, is this really happening? So I think I
They've been fantastic though. Like I was saying before we jumped on the call here, we were talking a little bit
mhm,
and I was saying like leading up to coming on here, I was listening and I really like I'm inspired and I'm really excited about this podcast for other photographers because I find a lot of times with photographers there's like competition and it's not community. And I think what
mhm.
you're doing is really amazing. So
Oh, I
keep
appreciate
going.
that. I'm glad that that's coming across. I think, especially in my area, we're a very like small community, and there are starting to be a lot more photographers, but there's kind of just this notion of like everyone's a competitor. The way I like to look at it is they're not so much a competitor or competition. They're just someone who happens to be doing the same line of work that I am. And it's definitely a mental shift that I hope I inspire other people to take because I think living in that fear based scarcity mindset is just going to rob all the joy out of everything that you do.
100%.
Hmm. And so I really appreciate you coming on the podcast today to share your knowledge and expertise. So you were saying you have this download that people can get that kind of walks through the whole onboarding process. Do you have any other advice for people who are wanting to supplement their careers or dive kind of into that product photography or commercial photography?
I mean, generally speaking, if you have an interest in photography, and you are already doing photography for wedding or for different things like this, like there is lots of room to take on clients in a business kind of
Like a business to
in a business
business
setting.
setting? Yeah.
It's different to market to because it's B2B instead of B2C. But one of the things that I think is really amazing, if you are doing, say, a wedding shoot and the person has like shoes that you're photographing or rings and things like this, like when you are taking those still life photos of those items, you essentially are a commercial photographer. Like if you're not shooting and capturing the moment of the family and the embracing and like the ambiance of the wedding, like you are actually doing commercial photography. And if you can position that by putting those kind of images and like making some branding around stuff like this that you can share with those brands that you're actually photographing those images of,
Mm-hmm.
there's opportunity for you to gain clients and have a little bit more freedom in your ability to book people. So if you're doing natural light photography already for weddings and you take beautiful still life photography, reach out to brands that are geared towards wedding because they merge and they connect with your market and your audience. And it's going to set you more of an authority in this. And you could potentially be working on bigger projects that could land you in magazines. It could land you in advertising that's going to be across your nation or in like the continent or wherever that the reach is. So if just by starting small like this, I think is a really great opportunity to dip your toes, but you're still like the professional and the authority in that industry of doing wedding photography or family portraits, but you're finding a way to make it commercial and keep building your business so that you can scale it further than where you are right now.
I love that. That's awesome. So I have one last question for you. And it's a question that I've been asking most of my guests. And that is, if you were a plant, what type of plant would you be?
You prepared me for this, but even still, it's such a shock because I have no idea what kind of plant I could be. One of my plants that I've had literally since I was about 4 or 5 is a ponytail fern. It's resilient. It keeps growing. It keeps reaching higher to higher expectations and new limits. So maybe I'm a ponytail fern.
I love that.
But I had bought this plant I think it was only like $2. And I used to have like those little fashion Chinese chopsticks that you put in your hair to like make a bun. I had one of those propped in there and it was tied to it because it was top heavy and it kept falling over.
Yeah.
But now it's here and it's like, I don't know, maybe 4 or 5 feet, but it's been cut down to its roots before because it was reaching the ceiling.
Oh my goodness.
So it's like, you can cut me down, but I'm going to keep going. And I'm going to keep rising and I'm resilient. You can forget to water me and I'm going to keep going.
Oh, I love that. That's awesome. We'll make sure that we link an image of a ponytail fern down in the show notes for sure, so you guys can see exactly what it is that she's talking about. But Erica, thank you so much for jumping on this call with me today and sharing your expertise. I just really appreciate you taking the time out of your busy schedule to hop on the podcast with me.
It was my pleasure. And I just want to take this second to thank you. And I really appreciate you allowing me to come on here and share all of the information that I have. And even still, there's so much more I could share and give. So if you give me a follow on Instagram or on the YouTube channel, you can continue learning from me. It would be really amazing. And I can't wait to talk more to you guys.
Awesome. Well, we might have to have you back on the show sometime soon for sure. And we'll make sure that we link her Instagram and also the YouTube channel in the show notes below. So make sure you guys go check that out. We'll also have links to her onboarding freebie, so you guys can check that out. I believe it has all of the scripts and questions that you ask in that initial call.
Yeah, so it's a 5-step guide with scripts, a pricing formula, email templates, and tips on making potential clients your dream clients.
Oh my goodness, that is awesome. That is so much information. That's so generous of you.
It's like a little magazine. It's beautiful too.
I've gotten to take a look at it and it's pretty awesome, guys. All right, well, thank you so much. That's it for this week, guys. We'll see you next week. Bye.
Thanks for listening to the Wise Photographer podcast. Dive into the show's notes for this episode and all past episodes at www.thewisephotographer.com. If you loved the show, share it with a friend. Thanks for tuning in, you Wise Photographer, you.